Ghosh and Anwesha Roy's Choudhwry's session on non-functional testing for Internet of Medical Things. So this is something interesting and new to maybe most of us as well. Both belongs to Cognizant and they are working as an associate there. So over to you, Pushan and Anwesha. I hope you have joined.
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Hi, Pushan. Yeah. Hi, Anwesha.
I'll start by introducing myself. So I am Pushan Ghosh, and I have not much experience as compared to the other speakers that I have been seeing from morning. So I have only 3 years of industry experience. I've been working at Cognizant Technology Solutions for the past 3 years. And today my co-author is Anwesha Choudhwry. Anwesha can.
I have experience of in Cognizant for the last 3 years, and we are mainly testing non-functional testing like performance testing. And same here, Cognizant was my first company, and that's it. I'm not so much experienced, but this is our first time joining and like being a part of this ATA GTR, and we are like greatly honored and overwhelmed to like be a part of it. And professionally, we have worked, especially I have worked on at least 3 to 5 projects. But this non-functional testing of IoMT is something new that we will be discussing today.
Okay. Great. And it's glad to have you guys here. This is something again new because IoT is something everyone is aware of recently. But IoMT is something new term. Let's see what it has to offer.
Yes. So beginning here, this is our agenda for today. The list looks a little bit long, but we will try to surf through it. Okay. So going to the first slide. Yeah. So most of us are already aware of the IoT, Internet of Things technology. The concept involves the use of interconnected networks where smart devices communicate with each other to exchange information. Advances in medical technology in collaboration with IT solutions have led to the use of connected devices in the medical fields, which resulted in branching out of what we know as Internet of Medical Things. So Internet of Medical Things is a subdivision which deals with healthcare applications and medical devices to provide information and feedback in real time to customers. This tech offers a wide range of products from everyday devices like smartwatches, which monitor physical activities, sleep routines, and even oxygen levels, to critical devices like smart insulin pump, smart pacemakers, and even smart beds at certain hospitals that constantly monitor vitals of a patient and keep updating them to the respective doctors. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So talking about the market of IoMT, the technological advancement in the healthcare information technology has led to a transformation in the healthcare sector. The market of IoMT is at a budding stage right now, but has experienced a surge in demand in the past few years. One of the factors that led to this rise in demand is the COVID-19 pandemic. During the pandemic, the IoMT industry saw a positive impact on the demand across all regions around the globe. This was mainly because people become more conscious about their health and relied on technology. We prefer to stay isolated and used IoMT devices like wearables, smart oxygen meters to monitor and share their medical information with professionals. Even after the pandemic, the trend of demand is expected to be on a high end, with the global market reaching a growth of about 187 billion in the year of 2028. I can move to the next slide. Yeah, so coming down to the core of our presentation, that is the non-functional tests for IoMT, right? So we have narrowed down few tests that can be performed in IoMT devices or IoMT applications. These tests are mainly concerned about performance testing and also for security testing. These are like a list of performance tests that we can perform. Going to the next slide. So the first question that comes to mind for IoMT is that as comparison to the common applications that we test every day in number of users. For example, in case of IoMT, it's not about how many users are accessing it, rather how many devices or how many sensors are communicating with the application or a certain device simultaneously. Also, if you see the second last point, one very important point is that in traditional PT, what we do is we send requests to a server, we receive a response, then we measure the response time, we measure the matrices of the server that are sending the responses. But in case of IoMT, it's a two-way traffic. The IoMT devices not only sends requests and receive responses, but in turn it also sends responses to the requests received. For example, if you consider a smartwatch, now, a smartwatch can get calls. You can get your phone calls in smartwatches, right? So it can get information from your mobile phone in your hand. While suppose if you go for a run or if you go for a walk, then the same smartwatch sends that information from your smartwatch to your mobile phone. So it's a two-way traffic. It travels both ways. So these things also needs to be considered while doing PT for IoT. So can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So this is the second part of why we need performance testing for IoMT. We have highlighted three main factors that are required. So the first one is performance at poor network conditions. Some critical devices that patients use from home networks like smart thermometers, blood coagulation meters, etc., that are connected to the internet and is responsible for continuously sending or receiving data could be affected if network bandwidth fluctuates at client side. This could be due to location of use, internet speed, or availability of constant bandwidth. Any interruption in the data transfer should not cause malfunction of the device or lead to memory leaks. Then comes compatibility with healthcare ecosystem. The requirement of usage of a healthcare device varies according to its environment of usage. A device being used for personal use will process or generate much lesser amount of data as compared to when the same device is being used in a hospital ecosystem. It is necessary to validate the performance of a device against a workload scenario of the healthcare ecosystem it is being used in. And the third reason why we need to do performance testing is to meet in-depth testing requirements. It is often noticed that manufacturing tests conducted before release fail to cover scenarios that are not foreseen. For example, in production testing of a Bluetooth device, only a simple connection testing could be used, and tests like intermittent connectivity issues might surface only later stages when it is being used by customers. For such reasons, an in-depth dedicated performance testing approach is required that would include scenarios of varying test cases. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So we have highlighted four main approaches of performance testing that can be done for IoMT. So most IoMT devices come with tight security and are not accessible outside the hospital ecosystem they are a part of. An approach to test such devices would be to validate the matrices of these devices. So that can be done only in the hospital ecosystem that they're performing in. So what we can do is we can generate the load, we can simulate the actual connections, we can simulate the sensors and then test the devices in the ecosystem that they're present in. The second approach could be following the orthodox performance testing protocols of simulating the load of the IoMT application using an automation tool like JMeter or load runner and recording the response time of the request sent to the server. For third approach, sometimes third-party applications are difficult to access, and getting permissions to let the load and network traffic also. In such cases, the only option we are left with is to validate the success criteria of the device in the ecosystem that they're performing in, obviously, and verify the matrices that are creating the for devices which are being used in create realistic scenarios with low bandwidth or with sudden rise in special scenarios where which can five considerations that we should take for before preparing a test strategy for IoT. The number one is the network of test environment. So the device should be compatible with the hospital environment or the clinic where it is installed in, and the device or the application should be scalable enough to accommodate the requirements of the hospital or the ecosystem it is performing. Number two is workload modeling. Workload modeling is none other than the same thing that I mentioned in last part of previous. Is suppose a smart device or an IoMT device that is present in people's homes can also be present in the ecosystem. Right? In that, the load that it is being subjected to in a person's home or a patient's home will be different than what it is experiencing in an hospital. So in these conditions, the results or the reports that it is generating should not be in any matrices. This is one. Number three, the protocol in use. So in traditional PT, we come across some very orthodox or traditional protocols like HTTP or UDP, TCP, all that. But here we have specialized protocols like MQTT, COAP, DTS. And before preparing any test strategy, we should first keep in mind which protocol the device is using, because that will naturally suggest us what approach to follow for the test. Number three, resiliency of the medical device, which is very important. So a device which is performing in a steady way every day should perform in the same way, even if edited data is loaded to it at some point.
Sorry to interrupt, Pushan. Pushan, we need to like speed up a bit because we would run out of time. It is like we are close to 5:45. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. I'll skip through it. Yeah. Sure.
Thanks for understanding.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So fine. Shortlist the correct. So the last point is shortlist the correct performance matrices for a considered IoMT device, which means that while testing any IoMT device, we must consider which what matrices should be considered. Like there are many IoMT devices, some are wearables, some are implanted, so they all will have separate matrices that we need to be measured. Next slide, please. I can go to the next slide. Yeah. So we can test these IoMT devices in 3 layers. So I'll just skip through this because explaining them would take some time. So first of them will be device layer, the key objective, but the key objective is to provide an end-to-end user experience and track event processing and malfunction, scalability of bidirectional devices. the energy usage of batteries and so on, we can also conduct device profiling, API, and end-to-end performance testing. And then comes, can you go to the next slide? Can we go to the next slide?
Shivam, are you there?
Yeah. So the next comes connectivity layer, where we can measure multi-geo performance, gateway scalability, network latency, and all that. We can also do batch performance tests for some devices as well. And then the third layer is, can we go to the next one? The last layer would be the data layer. That includes event validation, data retrieval, but the most important that it includes is the end user touch points that tests the end user experience across the web and mobile, as well as the scalability and reliability. Yeah, next. Yeah, so this is how IoMT had helped during the COVID-19 pandemic. And from here, my co-author Anwesha will take over. Anwesha.
Hi. Okay, so I will quickly do everything because we have very less time. So actually, this COVID pandemic, I will just say, like as Pushan has already discussed, the increase of devices we can see, like due to the pandemic, people have like stopped coming out of their house. They are preferring online consultations, like having wearables, oximeters, like portable oximeters, smart watches. So the thing is that during the pandemic and after that, and since we have entered the technological era, people have started like using, and the increase of IoMT has increased. So for that, like what can we do? Like for pandemic, the IoMT has increased, and for that we have to increase the security of it, because now not only the performance but also the data which the person is doing, because see, from a home network and the security network from a hospital cannot be compared. So can you please go to the next slide? I will continue from there, because is something like everybody is aware of. Okay, so as what is security testing for IoMT, and the next slide is that what are the approaches for security testing. So I will quickly cover this. As you can see, you can go through the point, but I will just give a gist of what is mentioned here. The number of security incidents reported has increased in the health industry since 2015 as the increase of IoMT, and has become widespread. But unfortunately, during the pandemic, the health of the patient is of most importance rather than the security. But technology is a vital, since patient care, health trackers, sensors, wearables, everything is dependent on technology. With the increased number of IoMT devices used, patient care with so many vulnerable points within the clinics, homes, hospitals, securing the patient data is vital and crucial, for which security testing has become essential for all the medical devices. So that is why security testing is at most importance for IoMT device. Can you please skip to the next point? Okay, so the approaches which we can take is that, for the first point, if an attacker successfully injects anything in the network intelligence, in the firmware, or in the ecosystem of the hospital, everything is gone. Like that means all patient data, security, everything can be like accessed by them. They can delete it, they can change it. It can affect the patient health. Okay. The second point which we should like keep in approach for is that we should apply security questions, like for a person accessing it, we should provide with simple questions, so that we can understand if a person is a legitimate user or just somebody who is trying to just gain access to it. Okay. The second is that we should also have the depth knowledge about the architecture about it, so that we can know about which in which hub it has been created. The second layer is that the fourth point is we should provide security in the layer basis, so that if in one layer the data or it has been compromised, so in the second layer the data can be saved and the system and the data is secure. Integrating the security testing starts so that we can discover security bottlenecks and resolve it in the early stages. That is not only like applicable for security testing, but we can also apply it in any kind of testing, because before going to production, if that application is tested, if the device is tested for any kind of test, then we will be saving a lot of expenses, since doing any kind of testing in a live application will be very difficult and expensive, costly. Data encryption should be standardized, because if data is not encrypted, then like it will be very difficult for any tester to like encrypt all the data and test it. And device, if like for a device we already know it has some vulnerabilities, so it should be tested in the beginning, and so that all the relevant patches we can inform it to the other teams, and so that they can improve. And if for the next release, all these things can be rectified and a correct prototype can be set. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay. So the challenges what we face is that the first challenge which might face is due to the rapid growth of IoMT devices. Unfortunately, there is no generalized standard. And the manufacturer might use any protocol, like as Pushan has mentioned, MQTT, COAP, HTTP, etc. Right? Thus, we have to require standardized tools that can accommodate these protocols for the performance testing or security testing. Okay. IoMT devices offers a wide range of diversity in terms of both architecture and network configuration. All the devices have varieties of software with different platforms or framework being used. The tester must have a clear understanding of the architecture, as I already told you in the before also, network protocol and application platform before approaching to testing. The diversity is not only a hindrance of creating the realistic scenarios, the ecosystem of a device is accepted to perform also varies according to the need, and the establishing a baseline for one device becomes a challenge. The workflow and for hardware we can say is that there are different types of application. We have wearables, we have sensors, we have like smart watches, smart insulin pumps. Those are totally different types of hardware. So while testing it, we have to keep the mind that different testing approach needs to be taken for different hardware requirements. And the last is that the workflow of a device must be understood clearly before any performance test is performed, as problem may arise when thousands and millions of sensors on the endpoint send data to a gateway at predefined intervals, which may connect to restricted networks, leading to package loss, latency, because network connectivity is not something we can predict, and it can vary from place to place, from time to time. So we have to make all this consideration, then only we can approach the NFT, and even before considering it, we can face such issues, even if in process of the testing. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay. So the benefits of NFT is like, we have so many benefits. The first benefit is that if we try to do the functional testing, the performance of any application will increase, the security of any application will increase, and later on it will, like, main thing is it will improve the user experience. There will be no data loss or security or hacker incident. Patient data will be secured and safe. And like data parameters, like ensure and define capacities, because see, if at one point we are only testing with the predefined data, and for some other time the data is increasing, the device has to process a more large number of data, and we are prepared for it, then that's a bonus. Okay, you can go to the next point. Okay, so here what we are doing is we have put together 2 case studies. I know we don't have much time, but still I will just go through with it. If you have any questions later on, you can just ping us in the chat, okay?
Yes, that would be nice to all the folks here. Anwesha, actually, you are, like consuming their break time at the moment.
I know. Just give me one moment. I will just give an overview because both the testing cases are almost
Yes,
similar.
please, go ahead.
Okay, just one moment. Like the first test case and the second one also is like it's mostly like the first one we were talking about is an IoMT company which has specialized on IoMT devices have transitioned to an IoMT wireless tester. So it can multiply products which caters to a wide range of testing. Okay, which covers a scenario that was not traditionally covered. So now it is like normally the manufacturer were not covering this, but this company has now changed and transitioned to a wireless testing process where it is considering all the testing for performance testing, and it has seen more upliftment in their performance, in their security, and that is mentioned in this slide. And in the next slide also it is similarly the same. Can you please go there once? So here what it is mentioned is that with a high end of surgical machine that features and wireless subsystems for a remote control purpose, a manufacturer experienced issues with the yield. Okay, so what it did was the wireless subsystem operated without issue after when the manufacturer was testing it before, there were no issues, but when it went to production, it was having some issue. So it again went to the unconventional, or you can say performance testing and security testing. Everything was incorporated into this, and at the end result, everything was good, and they were able to successfully rectify all the issues which were there. So that is the thing. Both the case studies were doing. If you need any more details about this, give us in the chat. We will talk about it.
Thank you, Anwesha, Pushan. It was detailed enough with the good points being mentioned by you and both of you. It was good. Unfortunately, as I said, due to time restriction, we have to wrap this up. Sorry. So everyone here, actually, we have to supposed to break before 10 minutes back, but then now let's go and come back, guys. At 6 o'clock, we are going to start. So in next 5 to 6 minutes, we will be joining back here. Again, I would say that's an advantage of being on virtual. We can take less breaks and can manage the session. So thanks everyone, and thanks Anwesha, thanks Pushan. It was nice, insightful. Any queries, any questions, guys? Please reach out to them via chat. They are available till 8 tonight. Thank you. Please do not forget to share your feedback, everyone here. I have already shared a link in the chat. Let me put it again. Please do share the feedback.
Yes, thank you, Ganesh.